Well, thank you for staying with us. We're going to make the most of the next 30 minutes right here as we cut into the newspapers and bring you the latest from that world. But let me just let you know, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic serving you free prostate screening if you're a man. You saw that report recently. I read it out to you. 80% of those who show up at hospital with prostate cancer come after it's been with them for so long that basically they are just knocking on death's door. Don't let that happen to you. Go for free screening at Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're also offering, if you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Just make your way to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. You might find out that you have certain things going on in your reproductive system that you may not be aware of. Many women get caught by surprise when it comes to fibroids, for example. You don't want that to happen to you. Here's where you can locate Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady and Naji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Siama and Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. The end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review. And I have a special guest this morning. He is convener for Arise Ghana. You know his name. Well, when you see the berry, I wouldn't need to say anything. Bernard Bona, good morning.
It's a morning. As to the goodness of it, I can't.
Oh, so it's not a good morning?
Not at all, particularly after yesterday's unlawful arrests.
We'll get there. That's the very first thing I want to talk to you about. But what's it with you and the berry? Today I see 3 stars. Any significance? Do you know what the person you remind me of this morning?
No.
Guess. He was not Cuban, but he was adopted by the Che Guevara. Yes. You know, I spent time in Cuba.
All right. I didn't know.
I was on scholarship. I spent a year there.
He was such a fantastic internationalist. Who took humanity to a different level. He fought for the freedoms of people, irrespective of where they were.
Right.
He simply abhorred injustice perpetrated against any group of people. And you will notice that in the struggle of Che Guevara, not only was he in Cuba, he went to Bolivia.
Yeah.
He came to the Congo. And
in fact, I think it's in Bolivia that he lost his life. Yeah, he was butchered.
And actually, when he was going to be killed, he noticed the person who was coming to do it and quickly said, "Can I give you a note?" and sent a note to his wife and said, "You can go ahead because you have been assigned to kill me. And that several years after you have killed me, I will resurrect in many forms. There will be many Che Guevaras across the world." And I'm sure that your excitement this morning tells me that you are an avid believer of Che Guevara. Hamid.
I am for peace and peaceful measures, no matter what. But I believe in his ideals and what he stood for the poor and those
Have you
oppressed.
been to the office of the boss of the National Petroleum Authority?
Dr. Mustafa Hamid?
Yes, as soon as you get there, you see Che Guevara.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yes. Because people who are right-minded must believe in the cause of freedoms, irrespective of whose, whether you're...
And we need young people like that who have that vigor, that enthusiasm for country, which Nkrumah had.
You know,
we celebrated him only yesterday, and I was surprised that, let's get to the other bit, because yesterday we're celebrating Nkrumah Memorial Day, what some of us, and I will continue saying it, is Founders Day, founder with an apostrophe S. Guess what? My light went off yesterday. I mean, on a day when we are celebrating at the Osajifo, they take my light. I felt, and then we also saw what happened with the demonstrators, Democracy Hub, and I felt ashamed, and I posted about it. On a day we celebrate the Osajifo, this is what is happening in Ghana.
Well, if you have a president who can go and recognize Gandhi as the founder of the Indian nation and decide that he will not recognize Nkrumah as the founder of the Ghanaian nation, then there is a challenge. So the spirit of Nkrumah will not allow peace to prevail until you put Nkrumah in his rightful perspective. And you see, several years after Nkrumah's overthrow and his death in 1972, You remember that Nkrumah's books were burnt, even at the University of Ghana by Professor Finn, who led the charge. An academic institution, I keep insisting that the University of Ghana owes the world an apology for destroying material. Whether good or bad, it is our duty to read and decipher what is inside those books.
I feel that is one of the most dangerous, most backward things we've ever done, because you can do anything to a population. You can, but if you take away their knowledge. Their source of existence,
let us get to know what was there.
You kill them.
You decided to burn books written by somebody, original thoughts, simply because you hated the man. The books have been reprinted in many folds.
And you can't believe that academics,
yes, it's
like
academics.
Uzia,
they supervised and they actually proscribed the usage of anything in Nkrumah. If you had a photograph of Nkrumah, you were seen as a criminal and you would be prosecuted. Today, Nkrumah has blossomed.
Nkrumah never dies.
He never will die.
Like Che Guevara.
He will never die. And so yesterday, remember, one of the things Kwame Nkrumah did, at our independence, he noticed that we needed electricity, first and foremost, to do any other thing that we wanted, the industries that he was trying to put across or he put across. So he went in search of electricity, both hydro, nuclear, thermal, whatever form that Nkrumah could gather electricity.
That's why we have atomic.
You understand? So Nkrumah put up the Akosombo hydro dam. At the time he was putting it, the likes of Buzia were saying that the population of Ghana was too small and that
5-point-something million.
Yeah, and that we needed just 50 megawatts to be able to supply electricity. So why don't we go and buy a generator? Kwame Nkrumah was building a 600 megawatts Akosombo dam. He could foresee that population growth, not only in terms of human beings, but in terms of industry, in terms of the manufacturing sector, in terms of education, everything was going to grow. This is a man who thought more than 200 years.
Some people say he was too visionary. He saw too far, too many decades ahead of him. That's why people didn't like him. And that tends to be true. Even today, when some people who are very futuristic in their thinking, society, goes against the grain.
I see Nkrumah as a prophet. Nkrumah is a political prophet of Africa. That without any example for him to learn from, he set his own example. And that example is unequaled.
All right.
And that is how come that the BBC, when they put up a poll, don't forget that they don't like Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah.
They put up a poll. Mandela was alive.
Yeah.
And then Nkrumah beat Mandela to it. Did they ask Mandela, how do you feel that a dead man beat you? Then and his response was simple. Did you ask me who I voted for?
Interesting. Recently, just a few days ago, was it yesterday, we had this talk on the Osajefo and the Madiba, two luminaries of our time. But let's quickly, in about 1 minute, because I'm sure we'll have more time to get into it. The police prevented the demonstration yesterday of Democracy Hub. It appears nowadays, anything you say, they'll say go to the Black Star Square or the Independence Square. I don't know what is there. But people, ordinary Ghanaians, provision, fundamental right guaranteed by the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, so that you and I can determine we want to demonstrate peacefully. They said no. And the people said, the mere fact, and this is something that, first of all, the police does not grant permission for demonstrations. You only let them know that this is my intention so that for peace to prevail, so that maybe you don't go blocking certain routes. They give you an escort. And also so they can protect not just other people, but you as well, in case other people decide to attack you. They do not grant permission. And the mere fact that you put in an application for an injunction does not mean people are, so to speak, injuncted from carrying out such an activity. In fact, we see that with the EC now, right?
Yeah.
It was served on them, but until there is a conclusion in the court process, they have gone ahead,
including
with a limited registration. Yes. So how different is that from these people? What are your quick thoughts?
Well, yesterday was, as you said, a very sad day, remembering Kwame Nkrumah and all the achievements he has done. And I keep insisting that those of you who are into the media should meet the likes of Dr. Don Atta, who is the architect of the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park.
Don Arthur,
Don Arthur.
Formerly of the GBC?
Well, Dr. Don Arthur's son was Eric Don Arthur of TV3.
Okay.
But Don Arthur was a PNDC secretary for Works and Housing. He became PNDC.
Oh, you're referring to, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Dr. Don Arthur is the architect of the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. And if you see the mausoleum, the tomb, just where the tomb is. If you look at it critically, you see that it's actually a tree that has been truncated in the trunk.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a tree. And he told me, and I'm sure that when you go, you'll get a better picture, that Kwame Nkrumah was a tree for Africa, developing branches and to bear fruits. Fruits that will lead to continental currency, fruit that will lead to African resources handed for Africans, fruit that will lead to a continental central bank. And that the CIA with local collaborators decided to chop the tree on the top. So you see, the roots are there.
Extended. But...
And then the tree is cut on the top. When he finished his conversation, I said, fortunately, there is science, so we can graft the tree to bear the fruits that it was intended to bear. So certainly, if you go and look at it and you read what it was going to do for Africa, Kwame Nkrumah was going to do for Africa, and he was chopped on the top, then you will understand that anytime we remember Kwame Nkrumah, and I do this as an annual ritual, making libation at the tomb of Kwame Nkrumah every 21st September. So just yesterday again, I was reminded that the tree had been truncated. How do we graft it in order that it can bear the fruit that it was desired? Then yesterday, just before yesterday, President Akufo-Addo was at the UN. And if I will quote just a section of his speech.
I found that so interesting.
Then he said that the world is no more a happy place today. Yet Ghana is not a happy place. You will not reference that Ghana is not a happy place. As you were speaking, police were brutalizing innocent citizens whose only crime is to protest against the mad administration that is taking place in your country. Right? President Akufo-Addo never tweeted about the sordid occurrence in Ghana. Meanwhile, when it happened somewhere in the United States of America, police versus George Floyd, you remember what he did?
Yeah.
In the wee hours of the night, he got up to tweet. Things that are happening back home, you decided to gloss over it, and you are there talking about the world is not a happy place today. Ghana is not a happy place, Mr. President, if you want to get to know. Then yesterday, the Democracy Hub. In fact, I passed there earlier.
Right.
And I saw that the police had started to mass up. So I rolled down my glass to say, you people told us that you had gone to court. And so you yourself should not come here. The people have a right to defy a court or not. But once they chose that they are going to go on, the next thing for the police to do is to go back to the court and seek a contempt. Not so. You don't come and apply brute force. You applied brute force. The Electoral Commission that has been cited for contempt because they violated an injunction application, the police is around the registration centers and you are protecting them. And yet citizens cannot be guided to just go and do their peaceful demonstrations. Fortunately, yesterday in the evening, the Inspector General of Police placed a call to me and said, Bernard, we know one of your...
The IGP called.
The IGP did call, and I want to commend him. He called and said, I have instructed that every person that was arrested should be released. No one. And so I took off to go to the railway police station where the Bakavomawo was the only person that was put in that cell in that place. Others were distributed. If you go to Choko, you had 3 people. Ministries Police Station, we had 8 people. Dansuman, you have 5 people.
So just quickly, at the end of yesterday, everybody
was released.
Including Oliver Barker.
Oliver. So I see the newspapers reporting 49. There were 56 people. I signed for every one of them.
Basically, you stood...
Yes. When I got there, they were looking for 10 sureties for each of them. Then IGP said, release all of them. And so I had to stand in and I went to the regional crimes office. After we got Bakavomawo out, I had to go and sign and then to go and meet Bakavomawo and co, who had gone to the Adabraka police station to ensure that the last...
Very quickly, this is not the first time that Bakavomawo has been, apprehended. How did he feel? What did he share with you?
He was excited, and when he came out, of course, the young people came. They started singing, "Arise, Ghana, you for your country." It was, and the police at the railway station were like, "Stop the noise." We said, "This is our country, we can't stop any noise." So we sang because we feel that we have a sacred duty to lead this nation out of the mess we have. As we speak, aren't you aware that ministers that are supposed to ensure that our state gets assets, they have come to inherit assets? Today, they are selling those assets to themselves. Aren't you aware that, for instance, La Palm Royal Beach is to be sold? Bujua Beach is to be sold.
Is it?
Yeah, Elmina Beach is to be sold. You want to sell assets that you came to meet instead of creating more assets for the future. You are stealing from us what we owe. What is this?
Bernard, we'll have more time to elaborate on these later. Let's get into the papers. I'll just do quickly the papers I have. Daily Graphic, Reform UN Security Council, President Akufo-Addo says so. We're always big on the talk. I mean, we're very big on that, which every eligible voter will be captured. EC Chair assures. Prioritize national interest, Dr. Abu Sakara says so. Graphic digitalizes archives, 70 years of national records documented. Kudos to the Daily Graphic for that. I have the Jubilee book, the Daily Graphic and all of that, many years. It's not the entirety of it, but many snapshots of history. From Nkrumah, even before Nkrumah to Nkrumah and all of that. I think to the early 2000s. So,
this will lead to the preservation of records.
Indeed.
But for academics, for researchers, and for those of us who want to make reference to other things.
Unlike what we did to Nkrumah as well.
Yeah, so I think that it's commendable that Graphic has taken the bold initiative and want to commend them.
And this is since 1950. And again, Graphic, that's a yeoman's job you've done. Kudos to you. There's also on the back page, Intertech introduces chemical-free minerals testing technology. Let me quickly do the story on prioritizing the national interest. Dr. Abu Sakara, I just want to get into that. As for President Akufo-Addo and what he's been saying at the UN, we've gotten snapshots of that this morning. I don't want to get into that. I'll get into some of that when I share with you my blunt thoughts for today. Today, some people are going to run away because I came with fire, a lot of fire in my belly. Now, there is a development agronomist and statesman, Dr. Abu Sakara, has stressed the need for politicians to prioritize the national interest rather than parochial interest at all levels. He said meritocracy, equity, inclusion, integrity of service, and empowerment of people, among others, were key ingredients the nation's forebears fought for, which should be restored and practiced in full. Quoting him, he says, "Where Ghana has reached now, we need a political solution that allows us to reformat our program for development so that it is consistent with the cardinal principles of nation building, where we'll have equity, meritocracy, inclusion, and all those ingredients." Do you see that in Ghana today? And how do we get there? Do you know what's interesting? No. The 1992 Constitution itself says it. It points to probity, accountability, the very tenets we were supposed to stand for. Or you say those tenets, Yamutu?
No, we have caricatured the 1992 Constitution, bastardized it, and flipped it. And so even the spirit of the Constitution has evaporated. To the extent that, look, appointments, you know that teachers these days, to get promotion, you must have a political card. You must know somebody at the ministry or at the Ghana Education Service before you can actually get promoted. You know that there are members of various institutions that cannot get promoted simply because they are suspected not to belong to a certain political party. How do you, in the face of making everything partisan, expect that you get the right caliber of human capital to leap this nation to the next level? So Abu Sakara's call is in the right direction. I keep insisting. I went to secondary school, I went to university, without knowing anybody, right? Without knowing anybody. Today, you cannot get that. People walk to you that they want to go into the security agencies. Then you say, what is your qualification? Because the publicized qualification is that you must have English and maths and some basic qualification. When you look at the person's result, you say, no, you cannot, because you don't qualify. You want to be a nationalistic person. The person tell you, no. They say if I bring this amount of money, I will get enlisted. You don't believe the person. The next time you walk around, you see the person in uniform. Then you ask, how did you get it? I paid. So if I pay to become a police officer, if I pay to become an army officer,
right,
what do you think I will do?
No wonder we see the kinds of things we see. The Ghanaian Times, very quickly. Let's reform UN Security Council to conform to current global trends. President urges world leaders. Mr. President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, let's reform Ghana. Start from your home. You know what they say, right?
Yeah. Charity begins at home.
At home.
It doesn't begin at the UN.
Reflect on development agenda of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. That's the CPP. I'm done with my papers. You can go ahead with your papers now.
The Finder newspaper. Cabinet tax MMDAs to be at forefront of public discourse. Then you have Mr. President speaking again. Europe, allies must repay sacrifices Africans made a Second World War, President Akufo-Addo. I think that many people have made this call. Gaddafi was at the forefront calling for reparation.
Let's just say it's not new.
Yeah. So,
nothing new.
So if you are saying Africa did not make any sacrifice at these world wars, we were forced, we were seen as commodities belonging to Europe. They just came and captured us and took us there to go and fight their proxy wars for them. So it was not a sacrifice. It was that we were confiscated to go and do the bidding, and we must be paid for everything that we went. We lost our lives in order to build Europe and America.
Reparation.
Now, Africa...
But I feel it has also created a certain dynamic where some African leaders have become very lazy, just, asking from time to time. Look, let's face it, 1957. We're 63 years, thereabouts. If Ghana were a human being, you would be knocking on the door of retirement. You would be retired per our country's law.
No, you are retired.
55, 60.
You are retired.
55 for women, 60 thereabouts. So I still don't get it. They've done a lot of damage. But you see, where I feel a problem, whether they do the reparation or not, are they doing to our water bodies what we are doing with Galamsey?
No.
Are they doing to our country what our misleaders are doing to our country right now?
Did they come to sell Ghana Telecom? Did they come to sell Ghana Airways? Did they come to sell the Black Star Line? Are they selling the state-owned hotels to themselves as we are doing today?
Are they giving waivers, tax waivers haphazardly, left, right?
So they are not doing this. We acknowledge the enormity of the damage they caused. But if we also decided to take the right steps to protect even what was left for us, I'm not sure that we'll be in this disaster. So Ken Oforiatta says that Africa's inclusion in G20 will speed up progress. I wonder. What is that going to be? What do you mean by Africa? When you say Africa, Africa means Nigeria, it means Djibouti, it means Eritrea, it means Ghana. There is nothing called Africa. There is nothing called Africa. You used to have a purpose, Organization of African Unity, not so. You decided to denominate it to African Union, whatever that represents. They don't represent any significant interest in world affairs. So your inclusion, you will be fighting among yourself. Who is what? If the AU is included in G20, does the AU represent any country? Certainly, it will not lead to any progress. Of course, this is a misleading headline. Police arrest 49 suspects for unlawfully assembly. The police did not arrest 49. They arrested 56. But it was not unlawful assembly. It was the police that acted unlawfully yesterday. Now, the Daily Guide. Daily Guide says that 49 illegal protesters grabbed. Again, it is 56, not 49. 2, they were not illegal protesters. They conformed with the Public Order Act. The police acted wrongly, and it is important to correct the police for not understanding law by themselves. MPP welcomes Adwoa Safo's apology. Well, I don't know what that
Topped up with yogurt. You know, she distributed yogurt.
Oh, yeah, lots of yogurt. I thought that yogurt...
Oh, you don't reside in that constituency? I would have said you should go for some of the yogurt.
Unfortunately, I don't.
You don't?
But I have some relatives there. I don't know whether they got some. But it was just at a small function, so it was not meant for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm told that anytime you take the yogurt, you are convinced to retain hair.
Okay.
So whatever is inside the yogurt,
right,
we'll get to know. I have no beef with Baumia, Ken Ajapong. Then, electoral considerations won't compromise development goals, Finance Minister.
Okay.
Then, here again, reform UN Security Council, President Akufo-Addo. Then at the back page, High-Sense Extend Kotoko Partnership. Ghana maintained position in FIFA ranking. Bellingham was born to play for Real. Then blame me for Man U defeat.
Onana, our very own Onana.
Yeah.
Onana. For us who are Manchester United supporters, I was supporting Man U in the 90s.
Well, I don't know why.
The days of glory.
I don't know why anybody will support Manchester United.
Oh,
have you been to?
Please, let's not.
Have you been to Cape Coast Castle before?
I have. What's that?
Do you know how the slaves were marked? Do you know where they were traded for?
Tell me.
When you were marked M, you were going to Manchester. When you were marked L, you were going to Liverpool. And so for that reason, you cannot be a Manchester or a Liverpool.
Anyway, that's a conversation that
But the Black Princess went to Rwanda.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they thrashed the Rwandans 7 goals to nothing.
7 goals to nothing.
Yes.
And no story is about them.
Oh, I think I've seen some stories somewhere.
I've not seen 7 goals. When was the last time?
I think it's because yesterday it was in most of...
No, we should celebrate the exploits of the Black Queens. I don't remember the last time the Black Stars beat any team.
Anyway,
that's magnitude.
No, but by this magnitude, once you qualify. Let me just quickly do this right before we wrap. Raymond Abiu says, where is the freedom of expression and assembly guaranteed in the 1992 Constitution? I can't go on. Prince Nuruddin Bawumia, with a picture of Vice President Bawumia, says, the Ghana Police Service has not yet issued a press release to condemn the barbaric killing of 9 traders and injuring others who were on their routine business to Sinkafu, Togo, with an armed escort. Okay. There's Fuseini Bakobie, who says, the soul of Ghana is weeping. Koblasen Anu Achu Ganyo says, another tidal wave in Anglo and Keta, the people are homeless. And Raymond Abiu again, after stealing billions of CDs, okay, I will not mention names. Ofosu Dennis, I think, or Ofues Dennis. Great to have you here. Okay, so this is actually promotional. Let me leave it at that. Today happens to be the birthday of one of our big men here. This guy is solid. He does a wonderful job. He's one of our correspondents here at the Multimedia Group, specifically for Joy News. I'm talking about Peter Senu. Peter Senu, today is your birthday, and we want to celebrate you in style. You're a fantastic gentleman, and we urge you to keep up the good work. God bless you, sir. Peter Senu, happy birthday.
You don't celebrate somebody by word of mouth. Let's see the champagne and then the other accoutrements.
Why are you being mischievous?
No. How can you just say we celebrate you by word of mouth?
In this economy,
a soldier does not walk on an empty stomach.
For here, we'll try and do so. My blunt thoughts this morning, right after Prime Take, is titled, A Muzzled Democracy and a Puzzled Population. How things are falling apart in Ghana. You want to stay for that. But next, we have Prime Take. Do you have any final words for Ghanaians? 10 seconds, don't do...
Well, I just think that this nation belongs to us. Ghana is a great country. We can make it greater. Let us together work towards making Ghana greater, rather than diminishing the fortunes of our nation.
Put it there. Those are. Thanks for coming. Bernard Mona, of course, we all know him. He's convener for Arise Ghana. And of course, yesterday, he did the do by setting free our demonstrators, speaking to the IGP and all of that. Up next is Prime Take with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Today, he engages former Black Stars captain Stephen Appiah. That up next on the AM show.